How are you preparing your brokerage for the next iteration of the industry, whether it's the housing market or competition? Today, I spoke with Michele Harrington. She's the CEO of FirstTeam Real Estate, and we covered everything from, how an independent regional can thrive in today's mega merger atmosphere. And we talked about the NAR settlement and the possible unraveling of it. And we touched on a lot of different topics, all relate to building a brokerage that thrives in any market. So enjoy the podcast. Michele, I think this is your first time on the RealTrending Podcast. I don't know why we haven't talked before, but welcome. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So we recently actually had your VP of Marketing and Strategic Initiatives, Lauren Hens, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about that from your perspective. She talked about shifting from legacy brand messaging to future-focused value propositions. So how has that impacted the way you do things as a CEO with FirstTeam?
Yeah, so we're a 50-year-old company. So I think that a lot of times when you are taking over a company that's has been around for generations like ours has, then you have to embrace the legacy of the company, of course, because it's an amazing company. But then you also have to let go of some of the old way of doing things and really bring it into the next century. And I think that we've done a really good job with that. And our founder, Kamaraj, has let me just kind of go with it and transform the company into something that's a modern agent-centric company. And we've always been an agent-centric company, but I think really giving the agents the systems and tools that they need to operate in today's environment, which is a much faster, more competitive environment that we've had in the past. So it's been super exciting for me to be able to take the keys to that car, that, classic, amazing car, and really kind of put in, an 8-cylinder, amazing engine and then make it run and purr, so that's been fun.
Yeah. So you have a campaign called Behind the Agent. And it was credited with driving like a 98% retention rate and boosting your conversion. So as a CEO, how do you think this kind of agent-centric positioning affects recruitment, retention, culture? What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, all companies, in my opinion, real estate companies should be agent-centric. I mean, we are here, our clients are our agents. And I think a lot of companies, especially big companies, look at their clients as the consumers. And I don't look at it that way. Like, my agents can worry about the consumers. I worry about the agents. I take care of my agents. I listen to my agents. They are my customers. And I think when you have too many gods or kings, like you have a board of directors and you have shareholders and you have, your leadership team and your consumers and all that, then you're not really focused on one thing. And because we're small, because we have no board of directors, because we have no shareholders, I mean, small considering, when you look
Right.
at some of the huge mega companies, we are all we need to focus on, and all we have to focus on is the agents. And I think that just gives us such a competitive edge when it comes to companies that have many kings they need to serve. We only have one. We serve our agents and that's it. And so the Behind the Agent campaign really reflects that and really lets the community, the agents know that we are 100% about them, not about our shareholders, not about consumers. We're there to make their business into a thriving business. So
yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of it. I really was impressed with the whole campaign and how, how that was implemented. And so I wish you the best of luck with all of that. And I'm excited to meet you in person at the gathering where you'll be a speaker on kind of real estate trends, the NAR settlement. And you did not mince words about the NAR settlement at a Realty Alliance event. And so you also said it was the last few years have been the hardest in your brokerage's history. So what specifically has made this period so challenging, which I know, but for independent and regional brokers, in addition, let's talk about the settlement, but in addition to the settlement.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the real estate market has been not great, the past couple of years. And so we have a market where all the agents are, mostly down. I mean, we actually grew in the past 3 years based on basically just like grinding and recruiting and making things happen. But it's been a tough 3 years just because the market's been down. So, the market gets down 20% one year and then another 20% the next year, you're down 40%, in the market. And then you have to combat that and dig yourself back out of that hole by, making your agents more productive and recruiting more agents. And we've done a really good job of that, but it's been a tough couple of years. It's been a tough couple of years for our agents. And then you layer on top of that, these lawsuits, these class actions, and the fact that NAR did not, even though they said they were going to fight and defend us, most people don't know that there's between 80 and 90 brokers, large brokers, that they left out of that settlement when they settled it. They were like, you're on your own. And, we pay our dues just like everybody else pays their dues. And we really got screwed in that. And I don't mince words about it. NAR leadership knows how I feel about it. They act like, oh, we didn't realize there were so many of you guys. Even if there was one of us, they shouldn't have left us out. So I think that they blew it with that. They blew it with us. I think there will be repercussions because of that. And, but yeah, it's been a tough couple of years. And for our agents, for our brokerage, we've done a great job of combating it and bringing ourselves up out of it. But that's grit, that's perseverance. And that's what makes good companies great companies. So I'm always happy to have the challenges. But it'd be nice now if we can just ride a little bit of a wave of a good market. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we do have RealTrend's verified brokerage rankings where you could see who those brokers might have been through the settlement. So there is information out there. So what changes are you seeing inside brokerages right now that real estate leaders need to be paying attention to?
Well, I think, I hate to talk too much about technology because technology is like a double-edged sword. Most of the agents don't use technology at all. So you have you spend a lot of time and money developing technology that most of your agents are never going to use. But I think it's important and we revamped our tech stack, to really look at revamping your tech stack on an AI platform so that that your AI will learn and will get better and better and better over time. So I think we are revamping our tech stack. We did most of it. And now we're kind of revamping our central hub on an AI platform so that it can learn everything that our agents need to know. And I think that's important, but not the only thing. I think that doesn't really drive production. I think what the biggest thing that drives production is accountability and coaching of the agents. And sometimes companies get too big to do that. And that's where I think the companies fail the agents. It's a very lonely business. You're an entrepreneur, you're an independent contractor. There's not a lot of people saying, hey, come into the office at this time, make your calls at this time. And a lot of agents really need that and want that. So if you can provide, and I think it gets overlooked because we're so obsessed with technology, but if you can provide accountability and training and coaching so your agents are constantly evolving and growing and learning, then you're going to be that sticky company that, your agents come to. They see the growth of the agents that are there, and then they stay with because they're like, I'm doing better here than I was ever doing anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And now what AI platform are you looking at for technology and for your tech stack?
So we basically revamped our tech stack to have Follow Up Boss, Luxury Presence, and Real Scout as our three main platforms. Okay. What we're doing right now is taking our hub, which is our single sign-on hub, and building that from scratch on an AI platform. So normally we buy tech, we don't build tech, but on the platform that houses all of our tech will be built by us and a company we're outsourcing with. And so that'll be really amazing. SkySlope is another one, and it'll all integrate with everything. SkySlope, Follow Up Boss, Luxury Presence, Real Scout. It's really important to kind of have those things, integrated into a single place where your agents can go and see like their whole business. And that's been like, I've been pushing for that for the past couple of years. And we finally at a point where we're about 6 months away from launching it.
Okay. Well, great. Excited to hear more about that once it's together.
Yeah.
And, I want to go kind of back to the commission lawsuit settlement and the broader legal pressure on brokerages. And, obviously there's also the suit that could derail the NAR settlement, possibly. I mean, there's a lot of what ifs out there in the industry right now. So why do you think the impact on regional brokers hasn't been fully understood or told?
Well, the thing is that regional brokers, that's real money. That's like our money. When we get sued or we have a class action lawsuit, that comes out of Cam's pocket. When you have a Compass or Anywhere or, a VC backed company, I kind of look at that. I mean, I know it's real money, but it's not real. It's not their money. You know what I mean? They have shareholders, they have stock prices. It's totally different. So regional brokers, when you have these stupid lawsuits where nobody is benefiting but the lawyers, nothing changed because of that class action lawsuit. It was just a huge money grab on a corrupt system that should never have gone through. And then you're taking money out of small businesses and medium-sized businesses' pockets. And it's a terrible situation. It shouldn't be even, this isn't what class action lawsuits were meant to be for. Class action lawsuits were meant where somebody got injured or a company was poisoning the water. That's what, when there's real damage, that's what class action lawsuits. And somehow in this country, we let the lawyers run wild. And so they can fly around in their G5s, you know what I mean? And that's not good for anybody. So there really needs to be some serious re-looking at our legislative, system when it comes to how these lawsuits are filed. And because you could put companies out of business. I mean, we're lucky that we are backed by a man who has done really well in the real estate industry. He's an immigrant that came here from Iran, and his family started Hot Pockets. I mean, they've done well in business, and I'm super grateful and lucky that he owns our company and he can afford to get these dings every once in a while. But those dings eventually, those small brokers, those regional brokers are going to be like, I made, this amount of money and then I just gave it all back. What am I doing this for? Why am I working so hard? So you have to give incentives for businesses, because you don't want every business to be a Compass. That's not good for anybody. You have to have competition. Right. So you have to have these regional brokers. You should. It's better for the ecosystem. And you can't just keep, taking from them with taxes, regulations, lawsuits. I mean, you got to give them a break. So that's my soapbox right there.
I'm still trying to figure out with home price appreciation how buyers or sellers were harmed in the whole
Nobody
thing.
was harmed. Nobody was harmed.
So it really, and all the studies show that there really haven't been many changes. I mean, yes, you now have a buyer representation agreement that needs to get signed, and you're negotiating directly with the buyer about the commission they might have to pay, or the seller might have to pay, or who knows who's going to pay it. Have you reinforced any of your buyer representation agreements? I know a lot of brokers are taking advantage of that arbitration clause when they are breached.
We did create our own buyer representation agreement, more of like a simple one, more simplified than what CAR came up with. But I think that really nothing's really changed. It actually has made it a lot less transparent. You don't know, what as an agent, what you're going to get, how you're going to have to negotiate. Nobody knows, the buyer knows what they might have to pay, but they don't know if they're going to have to pay. So it's more complicated, less transparent. And it does nothing. Commissions haven't gone down.
Yeah.
It's, nobody really benefited except for the lawyers. They're the ones that
Yeah.
benefited, of course.
Yeah. Well, and there's still a lot of things unsettled at this point, a lot of lawsuits
Yeah.
unsettled that could have an effect on the industry. I'll be really curious about whether this NAR settlement reversal, what happens with that lawsuit. I don't think they could really undo what's already been done, but it'll be interesting if any practice changes come out of it, or who knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, what do you believe regional and independent brokerages should do to remain competitive at scale, as compliance and capital costs continue to rise?
Well, I think we have, regional and independent brokers have a really, really amazing opportunity right now with the Compass Anywhere merger. Because
Hmm.
when two big companies, two of the biggest companies in the world merge, the reason that people do this is because of the economies of scale. So
Yeah.
eventually they're all going to have the same tech stack. They're all going to have the same marketing. They're all going to have the same leadership. They're all going to have the same everything. So if 60% of the agents are all same, then the regionals, the independents are the ones that can differentiate themselves, can
Hmm.
stand out, can do things differently, can be nimble and fast and quick. And, so I think regionals and independents really need to look at it as what an amazing opportunity we have. Because eventually, the Coldwell Banker agent that's competing with the Compass agent using the exact same stuff, they're going to get frustrated and they're going to say, why am I competing with my same company? I need to be somewhere where I can be differentiated. And that's where we stand out. So it's a really great opportunity. And I think, sometimes I hear a lot of fear on behalf of the regionals and independents,
Hmm.
maybe about like private listings and et cetera.
Hmm.
But I think, we as a brokerage are the largest listing brokerage in our area. So we don't,
Hmm.
have to worry about anybody hoarding the listings.
Yeah.
So we're kind of lucky in that way. But I
Hmm.
think, you can't necessarily do anything about that because you can't change except grow. You can't
Right.
change what anybody else is doing, but you can look at yourself and how can I be competitively different? And I think there's a lot of opportunities for that right now. So grow and become the number one listing broker in your area. And then you don't have to worry about private listings and how that's
Yeah.
going to affect. I mean, just grind it out.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, um, you know, with so many companies under one umbrella and so many agents, there's going to be some cannibalization, Coldwell going to a Sotheby's, or, a Coldwell going to a Christie's, whatever. So the opportunity for independents and regional brokers to kind of have a value proposition that's different to convince those, companies or agents or teams, whatever, to come to them makes a lot of sense. I hear that from a lot of brokers that they're actually looking forward to the competition, but not only that, they feel like it makes them better. You're
Yeah.
more honed in, you're, honing your message, you're really, focusing on the things you need to focus on in order to get the agents or teams or, new offices. So yeah, it'll be interesting once their integration goes through, how it all plays out. I mean, I think they're going to be successful. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity out there too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So growth doesn't always mean getting bigger. How do you think brokerage leaders should be defining growth in this next phase of the industry?
Yeah. So, when I had my own company before I joined First Team. First Team bought my
Mhm.
company. That's how I ended up here. And when I had my own company and I was younger, I used to just think I wanted to be like the largest, regional player. And I was
Mhm.
all about growth. And I really forgot about profitability as if the profits would just come magically. And they did come magically until like 2008. And then they magically stopped coming. So I really think, when you're building your company, growing is awesome, but not just for growth's sake. Profitability is king. I mean, you have to
Mhm.
maintain your margins. You have to look for more ways to be profitable and make sure you're putting away for another 2008 or like the last couple of years we've had.
Yeah.
and in those years where the market's down are perfect opportunities to acquire and grow in a profitable way. So
Hmm.
I think that we really need to make sure we're focusing on the bottom line and really being careful about our margins. Very low margin business.
Hmm.
We don't make a lot of, I mean, even our agents think we make a ton of money, but we really, the margins are tiny. And
Yeah.
I think that they can get squeezed really fast. So
Hmm.
looking at your margins, making sure you're profitable as you grow. Don't give away the store. Don't race to the bottom. If you have value, agents will come and work for you and pay a split. You don't have to cap it. You don't have to make
Hmm.
it $500 a transaction. You can, if you offer true value, then you'll be able to attract the agents that really want to work and really want to grow. And those are the kind of agents you want. You don't want an agent that's like, I'm not paying more than this. I mean,
Hmm.
like that's not the kind of person you want working for you. You want the person who's dedicated to their profession, who's dedicated to getting better. And that's the kind of agents that we attract. And
Hmm.
if you can make that kind of value proposition for yourself, then you don't have to race to the bottom and give away the store. Just make it valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's zoom out 5 years. And what do you think the brokerage landscape looks like for firms that survive and adapt versus those that don't? Yeah, it's kind of an
I
obvious
think it's going to
question, but
be,
like what will allow them to survive and adapt?
I think, creativity,
Hmm.
looking at things in a different way. We're growing outside of the state of California in a different way than we've grown historically. Not saying, we've always done this way, so it doesn't
Hmm.
work any other way. There's all kinds of ways to grow and to attract and to build a great entrepreneurial business. You have to kind of think of things in a different light. You can't worry about your sunk costs. I talk about this a lot when
Hmm.
sunk costs, like you've put so much into a certain way or certain area or certain thing that now it's not working, but you've
Hmm.
put so much into it that you don't
Yeah.
want to give it up. You have to
Yeah.
be, nimble and quick and decisive and really, look at the landscape. And I think that I think the regionals and the independents are going to have an amazing next 5 to 10 years.
Hmm.
I think we're going to thrive. I think we're going to grow. And I think that the consolidation of the industry is going
Hmm.
to help us do that. We're going to be better off because of that. So I'm very, very optimistic about the next 5 years. I think First Team as a company, I think we'll double the volume that we have. We're about 6 billion right now. I think we'll
Hmm.
be 10 to 12 billion in 4 to 5 years. And
Yeah.
I can see how powerful our brand has become,
Hmm.
especially with the consolidations.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. All right, we're going to do a lightning round. This is kind of the first answer that comes to your mind. So, one industry trend that agents, brokers are underestimating right now.
I think we're underestimating AI. I think that people just don't understand what it can do, and I think it
Yeah.
will take jobs.
Hmm.
But better than it taking jobs is it's going to make us so much more efficient. If you use it right and
Yeah.
you use it well, it's going to make you more efficient. Look for how to use that the right way.
Okay. The hardest leadership lesson you've learned over the past couple of years.
Um, don't expect loyalty. Unfortunately, in this business, like your heart will break and
Hmm.
you will cry. And I've cried many times because I thought that there was loyalty and there wasn't. And I think that just don't expect it.
Yeah.
You have to kind of build around it and hope for loyalty, but just
Hmm.
build something that people will be attracted to and they'll stay with, but don't expect it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing brokers should stop assuming will go back to normal.
I think that the race to the bottom is not going to get any better. The brokers that are rent a broker, and are that's not going to get any better. And so really, it's not about lowering your price, lowering your price, lowering your price. It's
Hmm.
about creating value, creating value, creating value. And I think otherwise the industry isn't going to look the same if we all just kind of race each other to the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest misconception about regional brokerages.
I think that a lot of people think that if you're independent and regional, that you don't have the tech and the backing and the systems that a big broker shop has. But technology has gotten really cheap. When I first got into the business, it was really expensive to build a tech stack. I mean, it was you would have to have venture capital or be on the stock exchange in order to build a great tech stack. Now you don't. So regional brokers can be just as competitive as big brokers when it comes to technology. You have to be smart about who you affiliate with, and you don't have to build it. You can buy it, and that's way more cost effective. And I think that that's one thing that people assume that regional brokers don't have that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. My last question is, what gives you optimism about the future of real estate?
Well, real estate in my mind is like the best investment a person can have. It is the only investment where you can really leverage your money and get into an investment for 10%, 20% down, 5% down, 0 down as a veteran. And you can get into an investment you're paying, and instead of paying rent, you're paying yourself, you're paying interest, of course, but it's generational wealth that it builds. And I cringe when I think about the younger generation saying that they want to stay renting. I cringe at that. They'll never build wealth. The wealthiest people in the world built their wealth in real estate, and you need to get into it, hook or crook. You need to buy a condo, buy the cheapest condo in the cheapest area that you could possibly get into, and eventually you'll sell that and buy something else. I'm very optimistic about real estate. It's never going away. It's not like a company where it can just all of a sudden close their doors and the stock that you own on that company is worthless. I mean, unless it's like, burns down, and even if it does, you still have the land. So very optimistic about real estate and the industry. I think that it's an amazing industry to be in. It's amazing because entrepreneurs can get into a business that they don't need a whole lot of capital to get into and build themselves a thriving career with, very little overhead. So, the investment is amazing. The industry is amazing. I am very excited about younger people that get into this industry as a first career because it is an amazing career. And you can build it, start as an agent, build a team, create a company, build a brokerage. There's so many things you can do and just really thrive. So I'm very excited about those two things.
Yeah, that's great. Very optimistic. I love that. Michele, thanks so much for joining the RealTrending Podcast. I look forward to seeing you at the gathering, and I'm moderating your panel, so I will be there with you. We'll have a prep call, and that's in April. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.